Hello, and welcome back to Election Time News, your one-stop political estimations, poll reviews, non-partisan predictions, and reviews and compilations on other political forecasters. Today is Wednesday, October 16th, 2024, and today I'll be updating my presidential map based on margins of victory for each candidate based on my Google Sheet here. I will be going in order of poll closing times. And I'll be back at my decisions based on a bit of polling data and some other information such as previous voting history. This will be relatively short, but there is another video coming out later today, so make sure to also check that out. If you like content like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel. I'll be giving weekly updates on the presidential election predictions every Tuesday, leading all the way up to a video with my final prediction on the morning of Election Day, as well as Senate updates on Senate races every Thursday. Tomorrow is another one. I have a goal of 500 subscribers by Election Day, so do me a favor and click on that bright red button below. Also, make sure to join the Discord, get alerts when I upload, take part in an election simulation or test your prediction skills, and more. That link will be in the description. I should be starting up the election simulation again soon, so make sure to watch out for that. Now, onto the video here, we have our blank 2024 presidential map, and here is my Google Sheet that I have all of my predictions on, with probabilities that I did yesterday in my video. Make sure to check that out if you haven't already. And I did dabble a bit in some of the margins for some of these states, so this is going to be a relatively quick one. Big information thing, I did change Wisconsin back to tilt Democratic due to some new polling here out of Wisconsin. Patriot Polling is a right-leaning pollster. Trump plus 1, shift it by 1. That's going to be even here. SoCal Strategies and On Point Politics and Red Eagle Politics are both right-leaning predictors. They have Harris up by 1, so shift it to the left by 1. That's going to be Harris up by 2. And North Carolina, Trump up by 2. That's going to be Trump up by 1. That's going to be Trump up by 1. So these are also tightening. So some of these odds have also tightened in some of these states a bit. But I did move Wisconsin back just because of all of these heavily Republican-leaning pollsters. I did look through all of them to figure out which ones are which, and this really also did help my decision in moving it back, because Trump's own poll had it Trump plus 1. Since it's an insider poll, you shift it by 2. That would actually be Harris up by 1. Insider advantage also has it even. So that would actually be Harris up by 1, and then even for the three most recent polls in Wisconsin. So I did move it back to slightly tilt towards Harris. Still a very, very, very narrow lead here, but I did move it back, which is somewhat of a big deal, considering that it gives Harris the victory in the presidency again, since it was the state that held up the winner. So now moving on from that, finally getting to the predictions here. The first poll closings are technically at 7 p.m. In actuality, they're at 6, only in some regions of Indiana and Kentucky, but they will probably not be called until 7 p.m., and there's also quite a few other state closings at that point as well. So starting here in Indiana, they're probably going to go about 15 points. That's safely going to be for Donald Trump. He won it by 16 points in 2020, so 15 points would actually be even less. I do see it going up to probably about actually 18 points or so, and probably about 15 and a half closer. Oops, I cannot type right. There we go. 15 and a half points or so is probably more likely, because even that would be a half-point decrease from 2020. And while it does have some suburban regions where Kamala Harris is most likely to make some inroads, it's still a very Republican state. Very Republican state. And so it's very unlikely to actually shift in any considerable amount, even though it did actually move quite a bit, 19.2 to 16.1. That's an entire 3 points. So I don't really see it moving much to the left. It's probably going to continue having more Republican trajectory in some of the more Republican regions, but I definitely do see potential for her to make a bit more gains, or it's not even going to be close to actually getting it competitive. State of Kentucky, 26 points for Donald Trump. This is one of the most Republican regions in the country. 26 is where he performed in 2020. I don't think I need to back that up very much. Vermont is going to safely go Democratic for the same reason. I really don't think I need to back that up very much. Probably going to be around, 34.5 points, 35 points or so. Very, very Democratic state. 35.5 for Biden. Next is probably actually going to be Virginia. This one's going to be interesting. It's been polling relatively close in the beginning, but it's gone back up. I'm probably going to have it be around 8 points. It's still going to be 2 points less than Joe Biden won it by in 2020. He won it by 10.1%. Probably going to be closer to 8%. I could see it actually going up a bit for Kamala Harris, but that's very, very unlikely. And I don't see it going within 5 points even, so that's really not going to make much of a difference here. But probably around 8 points or so, maybe a bit more than that. That would actually be safe margin. So a reminder for anyone who doesn't know, on this 5 scale, I use anything under 2 points is going to be tilt. Under 4 is going to be lean. Under 6 is going to be likely. Under 8 is going to be certain. And then 8.0 or above is going to be safe. So moving on, next is going to be the state of South Carolina. South Carolina is a consistently Republican state, probably around 11.5 points. That's really not all that red, but that's even a bit less than in 2020. I'm probably gonna bump this up a bit to about 11.75. I don't think it's actually gonna move much from 2020, which actually means it's gonna move left in respect to the nation, because most likely she's gonna get a bit less of the vote than Joe Biden did. But it voted for Trump by 14.3 in 2016, and then only by 11.7 in 2020. I think it's going to probably be closer to the 2020 margins than anything else here, but is definitely going to go for Donald Trump. There's no question about that. And then lastly is going to be Georgia. As of right now, I do have it going for Donald Trump by around half a point. Tilt margin, very, very close state. I think that Atlanta is going to have a large show-out, but just not as much as it was for Biden, because it appears that that voter base isn't as energized, and the rural regions are also a bit more energized. More of these outer areas that actually voted a bit less for Trump than they did in previous elections, especially, like Burke County, also even flipped. They're probably going to keep moving that way, but some of these other counties are going to continue to actually move and vote more for Trump again, get more of those vote energized. There's definitely a chance that Kamala Harris will pull off a win, but as of right now, I think it's going to be very, very narrow, quarter to half a point or so. I definitely could see, again, Kamala winning it, but right now I have it 55-45 in Trump's favor. So next up is going to be the Ohio and North Carolina poll closings at 7:30. There's 3 counties over here in West Virginia that don't close until 8, so as such, I will actually not be calling West Virginia until 8, even though it is easily a Republican pickup. Now, Ohio, I do obviously have going for the Republicans. Donald Trump is easily going to carry the state by around 9 points. Okay, I actually have it 2 and then 4, 7, 10. So it's going to be certain, which is the one right below safe, for about 9-point margin here. That's actually going to be an increase from the 8-point margins that he had both times in 2016 and 2020. It got a little bit bluer in 2020 by about 1/10 of a point, but it is still going to probably actually increase its margin to about 9 points or so. I could see it going down to almost 6, but more likely it's going to be around 8.5 to 9 points on election night. And North Carolina, I do see it holding on at least one more election cycle, this time around by about half a point. That's going to be another tilt state for Donald Trump. That's going to be even better than Joe Biden did. He lost the state by 1.3%. But I do see that Kamala Harris will fall short in the state of North Carolina. Yet again, as Democrats have basically always, since they've tried to win it again ever since 2008, when Barack Obama did narrowly pull off a victory, 0.33%, but then it fell out of his grasp by 2 points for Romney, 3.7 for Trump in 2016, and then 1.3 for Joe Biden in 2020. So it's going to be very, very close again. I think it might be the closest it's been since 2008, but it is going to probably vote again for the former president. Next is going to be Maine's 1st Congressional District, safe. Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, D.C., Rhode Island, Massachusetts, all going to be deeply safe. These are all very blue states. I'm going to quickly go through all of them. Connecticut, 19, Delaware, 18, D.C., 87.5. Scroll down here, Maine's 1st, 22, Maryland, 32, Massachusetts, 32, New Jersey 15, New York 20, Rhode Island 20. So all of these are not even going to be anywhere near close. All of them were in the basically all of them were in the 20s for Joe Biden, other than Delaware 19, New Jersey 15. But there's no contest. Just DC was 86.8, so that's actually the most Democratic voting region in the entire country. I think that there's going to be a bit more of the minority vote that's going to be a bit more energized in the DC region. But in general, I think it is still, so far, it doesn't really matter. Any margin's going to be, a lot of people are going to get DC wrong, most likely, just because of how blue it is. But anyway, next is going to be, of course, Maine's 2nd congressional district. I have it likely 6 points for Donald Trump here on this map, and the state as a whole is going to be certain for Kamala Harris, probably around 8.5 points or so on election night. Appears to be the consensus from the polls here. New Hampshire is probably going to be certain as well. New Hampshire probably around 7.5 points. That's going to be relatively close to where Joe Biden got it in 2020, perhaps a bit more. Maybe 7.25 points wouldn't be too far off. Next is going to be West Virginia, easy Republican pickup, as well as Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, Missouri, and Oklahoma. All of them are safe red. West Virginia 38, Tennessee 22.5, Oklahoma 31, Missouri 16, Mississippi 16, Maine 2nd district again is going to be 6, Kentucky 26, I already said that one. So I mean, all of these are not even going to be close for a contest for Donald Trump. He's going to easily take these states. They're probably going to be called as soon as the polls close. And the same can be said for the state of Illinois. Illinois is going to be safely in Kamala Harris's column, probably about 16 points or so on election night. And then the keystone swing state of Pennsylvania, I have this tilting for Kamala Harris. It has been right on the edge for so long. And I've gone back and forth on whether or not to drop it to toss-up, but there just hasn't been enough polling issues for Kamala Harris as of yet. I have it going 1/4 point, which is the lowest margin that I do, 1/4 point. I could see it going up to about 2016 margins, or even better than Joe Biden did. It's definitely possible that either one could definitely happen on election night, but I do have it going by around 1/4 point to 1/2 point for Kamala Harris on election night. Next is going to be the 8:30 p.m. poll closing, just going to be the state of Arkansas. There's really no chance. 30 points for Donald Trump. It's going to be an easy sweep for the former president. And then it's going to be 9 p.m. We have New York, Minnesota, Colorado, New Mexico for Kamala Harris, and then Wyoming, North and South Dakota, all of Nebraska except for the 2nd congressional district, Kansas, Louisiana for Donald Trump. Oh, I missed Florida for 8 p.m. That's going to go likely for Donald Trump. That's going to be 5 points or so on election night. I could see going up to 6.5, but I really don't think that he's going to gain that much traction. He only won it by 3.4% in 2020 and 1.2 in 2016, so that's quite a bit of a gain, but still 5 points would be a considerable gain for him anyways, so there's very little chance that he's going to get even better than that. So those are the safe states here. Again, looking at some of these, Wyoming, 44 points, the most Republican state in the entire nation. South Dakota, 27 points. North Dakota, 34. Nebraska's 3rd, 50 points, the most Republican voting district in the entire nation, the most Republican voting region in the entire nation. 14.5 for Nebraska's 1st, 18.5 for Nebraska as a whole. So none of these are even comparable to each other whatsoever as far as close to competitive states for either candidate. Colorado is going to be safe, probably around 12 points on election night. Oh, I accidentally did put in New Mexico as safe. That's actually going to be certain. 8.5 points on election night or so. Now, these are the semi-competitive regions. We have Arizona, Texas, Iowa, Nebraska's 2nd congressional district, Wisconsin, and Michigan. I do have the Rust Belt trio all going blue. I'll beat just barely Wisconsin, quarter of a point, going up to a point in either direction. I did, again, just flip this back just because of the polling data that I referenced. And Michigan here, I have about 1.5 points for Kamala Harris. Actually, this is probably the greatest chance that Kamala Harris has to win out of any of these by far. She's only leading by 1 in these polls, but again, this one, right-leaning pollster, has Harris up, and scrolling back down again, I believe that even Donald Trump's own internals really didn't have him doing all that well. He was only up by 1 in his own internal poll that he decided to release. I doubt it really was leaked. So it really isn't showing too well for Donald Trump in the state of Michigan. I think he's probably going to lose the state by around 1 to 1.5 points on election night. Wisconsin is a different story. It's ridiculously close. The polling has been the best out of the trio for Kamala Harris in the state of Wisconsin, but it is the most traditionally right-leaning. It went to Biden by the least out of the 3, and it went to Trump by the most out of the 3 when they all flipped in 2016. And also, demographics-wise, it's the most Republican-friendly, but it still has been polling relatively well, and I think that we can't assume there's going to be too much of an error here. Assuming that there's going to be polling error based on previous errors is just a bad idea. So, based on looking at this, I think it's going to narrowly go to Kamala Harris. And next up, just based on, some cross-tab information, and Nebraska's 2nd congressional district up here is going to be certain, actually 8 points, which is going to be another shift, quite a bit of a considerable shift, but not by all too much. Voted for Biden by 6.6% after actually voting for Trump by 2.2 in 2016. That was an 11-point shift right there. This is going to be closer to a 1.5-point shift or so in the direction of Kamala Harris. It's a relatively urban or suburban district, so it wouldn't be too big of a surprise if it did shift that way, because that's mainly where Kamala Harris is gaining in the nationwide, where Democrats are gaining in more suburban regions. The state of Iowa is going to narrowly go likely, probably actually going to be closer to about 7 points or so now. I could see it going up to about 9, but there's this one poll, again, there really hasn't been much polling, but there were these few polls that had it way closer than it should have been, and I think that some regions down here, especially because it's south of Tim Walz's home state, he's very popular there. Some northern Iowans or some other urban regions might have some greater support for him there. So I'll have to see how that pans out. If things aren't looking too good, then definitely I'm going to move those up for Donald Trump. I'll have to look at some early voting data if it's available. We'll be starting to look at that on Friday. Make sure to catch that video there. I'll be showing the first early voting data there. And next up is the state of Texas. I also have this likely, probably around 7 points, which is an increase from 2020, 5.6 points. Kamala Harris has been generally losing a lot of support in the Rio Grande Valley region, especially among Hispanic voters, and it's probably up in this region as well, in the Panhandle, where Joe Biden had a bit of support. That's completely gone at this point. That's going to drown out gain support in the suburban regions. And lastly, in the 9 o'clock poll closing time, is going to be the state of Arizona, which I have going by around 0.5 point to Donald Trump. That's down a bit, actually, and his chances are down, as polling in the state isn't taking off like it normally would in states that Donald Trump was looking good in. This one by Trafalgar, Trump up by 2. That's going to be down to Trump by 1. And scrolling down here, Trump up by 6, but that's a weird one by New York Times Siena College. I'm not sure what their deal is this election cycle, but they've been really confusing. I also dropped this one in Pennsylvania where Harris is up by 4. It doesn't make much sense. There's no shot that Harris is up by 4 in Pennsylvania. Down to his internals here in Arizona, Trump up by 3. Shift that to the left, too. That's Trump up by 1. That's really not that far. So it's going to be a close election in Arizona, but I do see Donald Trump still winning it as of now. Now, next up is going to be the next poll closings. Montana, Utah are going to safely be for Donald Trump. And then Nevada, I have tilting towards Kamala Harris. Nevada's probably going to be pretty close, probably 1.5 points. 2.5 is still going to be a drop of 1 point or so. Now, it might actually not move at all in respect to the nation, looking at how Kamala Harris is going to be doing nationally compared to Joe Biden, but it's going to be somewhat close here, looking at these last two. And these two being safe, I don't really think I need to talk about that much. Then the 11 p.m. poll closings, Idaho, safe. Washington, Oregon, California, all safe for their respective candidates, and that would get Kamala Harris 272 electoral votes, securing her the presidency, albeit just narrowly, because Wisconsin and Pennsylvania are going to be so close. They're probably not even going to, if this does end up coming true, they're not going to be called until about 5:30 in the morning on the 6th, right before people start waking up for work. So it's going to be obscenely close. And then these two, Hawaii is obviously going to go for Kamala Harris. There's no real shot that Trump's going to have anything, even with any, alleged things about the volcanoes or whatever. 29 points. It voted for Joe Biden by 29.5. There's not any traction being made there either. It's just a secured Democratic state. And most likely Alaska is going to go to around 10 points. That's going to be right around even to Trump's margin in 2020 that he won it by. And that does finish off our margins electoral map. Thank you all so much for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss the live stream on November 5th. 3 weeks, less than 3 weeks, 20 days, starting at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I hope you all will be there. I am psyched. So thank you guys so much for watching, and have an amazing rest of your day.